Designing logos and graphics that actually look professional starts with Adobe Illustrator, but it doesn't have to be complicated. This Adobe Illustrator tutorial was built for beginners who want to make bold, clean designs for business, branding, or personal projects. You'll learn everything you need to feel confident using it, and by the end, there's a bonus tip that'll save you hours of editing down the line. So let's not drag it out. I'm going to hand this over so we can dive right in.
The first thing we are going to do once we open up our program is click on New File and then set the parameters for what we want our file to be. There is a lot of templates, and Illustrator offers some free templates as well. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to make a 1080 by 1080 square and title this Illustrator Tutorial. So now that we are in our workspace, the first thing we need to do is understand the workspace and our tools. We are going to focus on the Tools panel on the left-hand side of our screen and the Layers panel, which is on the right-hand side of our screen. The two most important tools that you need to know are the Selection tool and the Direct Selection tool. The Selection tool you can easily access by pressing V on your keyboard, and as you can see, it's switched to the top. And the Direct Selection tool you can access by pressing A on your keyboard. The Selection tool allows you to drag and drop different objects around your screen, and the Direct Selection tool allows you to move certain points on objects. And I will demonstrate that in a second once we get to creating shapes and paths. We're going to use the Shape tool, keyboard shortcut M, to drag and drop a rectangle on our screen. So as you can see here, this white square is the fill, so that would be the color of our shape. So we could double click this and choose a color for a rectangle. And then this black is the outline of our shape as well. So we can make this a bright blue. When we go to the properties panel on the right-hand side of our screen, this is where we can change some of the parameters of our fill and stroke as well. So I can change the thickness on the outline by increasing this number right here. I can also change the opacity of my rectangle as a whole by changing this right here. And as we can see now, going back to our selection and direct selection tools, by using the selection tool, I can drag this rectangle around the screen. When I click on the direct selection tool and double click on one of the anchor points on my rectangle, I now have the ability to move this point around my screen freely without moving the entire rectangle at once. To make a custom shape, use the pen tool, keyboard shortcut P, which lets you click and drag to create curves. So I made one point here and I will drag this, create another point and drag it out, another point. As you can see here, I made my first curve. There's a weird red fill here because I haven't completed the shape. If I want to fill the shape in, I have to connect my points all the way around from start to finish. And now I have this red blob with the blue outline on my screen because that is what I had set for the colors of the fill and the stroke. To move around the points after the fact, like I had said before, we're going to use the direct selection tool to double click on an anchor point and move this around. And if I want to move the entire shape as a whole, I use the regular selection tool to move the shape around, make it smaller, etc. Once we have two shapes on our screen, this is when we can start to do some really cool things. So if I select one, hold Shift, select my other shape, I can see a new column pops up on the side of my screen called Pathfinder. This allows me to unite my shapes and combine them in super cool ways. But to make this have an effect, I need my shapes to be overlapping. So I can take my square, overlap it with the blob, select both shapes again, and now if I choose one of these options over here, you can see with that option, it left me with the overlapping parts of the shape. But if I undo that, I can select this and it will remove it. And there's a bunch of different things you can play around with. Working with colors and gradients. We've already touched a little bit on fill and stroke, but if you click on a shape, you are able to change its fill, which is the color inside of the shape. And you can change the color of the stroke as well, which is the outline. For some depth to your shape, I would try adding a gradient by selecting the gradient tool here. And then we can actually change the colors of our gradient for some pretty cool effects. You can also change the type of your gradient. This would look really cool if my shape was a circle. Now we're going to talk about typography basics. The text tool, keyboard shortcut T, lets you add type anywhere on your screen. So I will select the T on the left side or press it on my keyboard, then click once on my screen, and I can type something fun on my screen. I can change the font size in the characters panel on the right hand side of my screen, or I can click and drag to make my text bigger. After selecting your text, you can also change the font over here in the characters panel, as well as changing the spacing between your text, also known as kerning. A really great shortcut that a lot of the Adobe products have is the align panel. So I can take my text and I can also take the shape as well and align them to each other. I can align one to the center of the screen. I can align my square to the center of the screen, and it really makes sure that everything is exact in your projects. Also, if you're interested in creating outlines out of this text with no fill, right now you can see there's no stroke on our text and there is just a fill, but we can click on fill, change this to nothing. We can go to stroke and change it from nothing to a color, and now we have an outline of our text. If we want to take the text, but make it follow the shape of a curve, we can take our pen tool, draw a curve. Now we have this random curve on our screen, and I could take the text tool, hold it down, and change it to type on a path tool. Once we have this, now my text, when I select the path, I can now type right on the curve that I created before. You can do the same thing if we had a circle. Once you have any sort of path on your screen, you can use your type on a path text tool to create text in any shape going any direction. One of the most important things about Adobe Illustrator is the layers panel. To stay organized, I would always highly, highly recommend to put all of your assets in an individual layer. For example, what I mean by that is right here, everything is all jumbled up in one layer, and it's really hard once you start to get tons and tons of paths and shapes on one screen to organize yourself. So, what I would recommend, this plus sign right down here, you can create new layers and you can name every layer. So, right here, I can type this in as blue rectangle, and I would take my blue rectangle and use the blue square on the right and drag it up to the top. Now, this allows me the ability to lock this layer in place. So if I was only trying to select my text on the bottom half of the screen and move it around, I do not have to worry about the shape on the top moving as well. I type something fun outlines. I can change this to text outlines. And now I have this one locked. And now I only have the ability to move these layers around. Just remember, always stay organized, always name your layers, and this will save you so much time in the long run. Last but not least, it's time to export our work. Going to go to File, Export, Export As, and I'm going to choose a location to save my file. This gives you the ability to save it as a PNG, SVG, PDF, anything that would best suit your project's needs. I would typically stick to PNG because this gives you the most freedom with your vector graphics. Once I've chosen the place where I want my export to live, I will click the export button, choose my resolution. I like to always export at the highest resolution I can. You also have the ability to change your background color if you don't want to export with a white background, and if you want to export a logo with a transparent background, make sure you choose transparent background color and then you hit OK. I hope this video has taught you a few things about Adobe Illustrator and you feel confident to start making your first graphics.